darkness. A cold, aching void where moments, or maybe an eternity, had been stolen from me after the energy surge from that ruined console. The last I remember was pain, overload, and the dying shriek of the AI. Then a voice. Not a sound caught by ears, but something sharp, insistent, blooming directly inside my skull. It was female, with a crisp, almost clipped British accent I had never encountered before.
Get the fuck out, now!
My eyes snapped open. The mental command was so forceful, so utterly unexpected. It was like a physical jolt. I gasped, or tried to. My chest felt tight. My limbs heavy and unresponsive. I was on my side, half buried in what felt like a mountain of cold dust and debris. Disorientation warred with a sudden, strange surge of energy from deep within. The nanites, I presumed. It was a faint, thrumming alertness, a feeling of internal systems coming online, pushing back the oppressive weakness. My code, the one I had found on my ship and that had integrated with me, was definitely active. I could feel a subtle pressure and a regulated warmth against my skin. A steady rhythm that was almost comforting. It was working overtime. That much was clear. Pushing myself up was a struggle. My limbs were stiff, protesting every movement, but the nanite surge seemed to be clearing the worst of the fog. The air was frigid, thick with dust that swirled in the erratic, dying flashes of what remained of the emergency lights. The spot where the AI projection had flickered was now a mangled ruin of sparking wires and blackened metal. What was that? I rasped, my throat dry. My own voice sounded alien, unused. The same internal voice, sharp and impatient, cut through my confusion.
Later. Survive first.
I looked around, truly looked this time, and my breath hitched. The sheer scale of destruction was staggering. The containment core room was barely recognizable. Massive new rents had torn through the walls and ceiling, revealing twisted girders and, in some places, the star-dusted black of nothingness. Dust, easily several centimeters thick, lay like a funeral shroud over everything. This wasn't hours ago. This must have been weeks. It had to have been. The constant seismic tremors I remembered were now violent, unpredictable lurches, accompanied by the deafening screech of tearing metal and the sudden, sharp hiss of decompressing sections somewhere nearby. Small, angry explosions were starting to pop and flare around the wrecked center console, each one sending shivers of imminent doom through the deck plating. The whole place felt like it was on the absolute verge of catastrophic failure. The ceiling directly above me let out a terrifying groan, a large section visibly cracking, dust and smaller debris raining down. Okay, message received. Whether that voice was a particularly vivid hallucination brought on by the trauma and prolonged unconsciousness, some bizarre unknown system of this dying ship making itself known, or something else entirely, its assessment was undeniable. The internal command, that new, sharp female voice, had galvanized me. Above that groan like the world tearing itself apart, the ceiling was giving away. No time for conscious thought, instinct honed by being me took over. A fox doesn't wait for the trap to spring. I threw myself sideways, a desperate, roaring scramble. Debris, tons of it from the field, crashed down precisely where I'd been lying. The impact shook the already unstable floor violently. Still coughing dust, I looked for the door I had entered. It was a crumpled, sealed ruin. Which way? I managed to think, the question aimed at the voice, hoping it was still there and not just my imagination. Her reply was crisp and immediate.
Not that way. Structural breach to your right, beyond those sparking conduits. Go!
The breach indicated was a jagged hole, spitting sparks. What about the elevator shaft? I thought back, remembering the way I had come down from the cottage. The one that led from up there. The voice in my head had a distinct edge of sass now.
Really? You think an elevator is going to be operational in...
I could almost feel a mental gesture encompassing the surrounding chaos.
This?
Point taken. No, I conceded mentally. But the shaft itself, I can climb. It's still there.
Possible, but this breach is our most immediate viable exit from this collapsing cell. We assess the shaft if we reach the main transit corridor. Now move. That firewall ahead. Your coat can handle the heat for a short burst. Don't breathe it in though.
She wasn't exaggerating about the fire. The passage beyond the breach was a roaring inferno. Flames licking at the ceiling, the heat searing even from a distance. The entire ship was a symphony of destruction. Screeching metal, distant concussions that I felt more than heard, and the constant violent tremors threatening to throw me off my feet. My coat seemed to hum, adapting. Taking as deep a breath as the coat would allow, I plunged through. The heat was incredible, a physical blow, but the coat held. For a few hellish seconds, I was blind in the smoke and flames. Then, I burst through the other side, air hissing from the vents in the coat, clearing the worst of the fumes from around my head. The corridor beyond was relatively clear for a moment, just buckled plates and flickering emergency strobes. I broke into run, adrenaline overriding the weaknesses in my limbs. Then, the floor ahead simply vanished. 1 second, it was there. The next, a yawning chasm opened up, plunging down into a terrifyingly bright, unstable core of what looked like the ship's dying reactor. Energy arcing wildly between distorted structures. I was already committed to another stride, too late to stop, but then I wasn't in control. My body locked, muscles coiling against my will, and I was thrown backwards with a force that slammed the air from my lungs. I hit the deck plating hard, skidding to a halt inches from the new precipice. Looking back on it now, writing this, it was the first time she took direct physical control using the nanites. It was profoundly disturbing, being a puppet in my own skin and unwilling passenger in my own body. But it was undeniable. She had saved my life. Shaken, I got to my feet. The chasm was wide.
Think you can make that jump? Or do I need to assist again?
The voice was back to its crisp tone, though I fancied I heard a flicker of something else. Amusement? Or perhaps a challenge? I can make it. I backed up, took a running leap, heart hammering, and just barely cleared the gap. Scrambling for purchase on the other side, loose debris clattering into the abyss below. I had made it. My heart was still trying to beat its way out of my chest, and the unsettling knowledge that I wasn't entirely in control of my body anymore was a cold knot in my stomach. But I was alive. For now.